All right. Closing for commitment. I'm going to introduce the theory of this to you. And the theory works a lot like football. Now, to be clear, my husband laughs at me whenever I use these analogies because I screw it up one way or another. I'm not like, I don't know all the stats perfectly, so buddy, maybe you can help me along the way. We met yesterday at a bar watching football in San Francisco. Just so happened we were coming to the same conference, so he's going to keep me honest. Here's the theory behind closing for commitment. When we're doing acquisition sales, when we're outbound dialing, trying to get new business, we used to call it cold calling. I don't think that's cool anymore. But you know what it's like when you're grinding and your reps are grinding and you're trying to acquire new customers. One of the things that's consistently most frustrating for people is that when I finally get the decision maker on the phone, the next time I get him on the phone feels a lot like the first time I got him on the phone. And you know what I'm talking about if you've ever heard this? Oh, yeah, I think I remember, right? I don't think I did have a chance to read that email. Why don't you go ahead and resend that email? And, I'll take a look. Try me next month. Sound familiar? So that's what this session is about. It's not about how to get the decision maker on the phone, how to leave a great voicemail. There's some great stuff there, but what this training is about is when you've got that decision maker on the phone in call one, how do you advance it so that you're not starting back near your own end zone for call two? And that's where the football analogy comes in, right? So football, American football, for my European friends, has this great technique of downs. You run a great play, you make it 10 yards, you get a down. And what that means is you start your next play from that field position. So now call two, you can start on the 10-yard line, not back near your own end zone again, right? There's not 100 yards between you and the goal. There's 90 yards. Or maybe you had a couple great plays, it was a pass play, and you made it 20 yards and got the first down. Call two, you get to start from that field position. You guys with me? So this technique is about gaining the field position and marking it with a first down. And it's called closing for commitment. So my goal is that by the end of this, you're going to look at your ability to close each call and look at closing a little differently. Closing isn't just scoring. It's not just getting the touchdown. You can close on every call by getting the first down. You ready? All right. So I want to talk a little bit about how this works and why it works by giving you an analogy, or a couple different analogies. The first one is a story I'm going to share about a friend of mine who's a consultant. And they were asked to go in and help a new restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona. Anybody know where Scottsdale is? So if you're from Phoenix, you call it Snotsdale. Just saying. A lot of high-end restaurants. And beautiful, pricey. It's a really great experience. And most of the Snotsdale restaurants have a gorgeous little girl in the front who takes your reservations. And we're going to go ahead and call her Bambi. Okay? I'm sure it's Buffy or Barbie, but today we're going to call her Bambi. So Bambi takes your reservation and says, "Oh, Mr. Clayson, thank you so much for reserving with us. We look forward to hosting your party tonight at 8 o'clock. Give us a call if you can't make it." Sounds familiar, right? Well, this consultant went in to say, okay, he was brought in, by the way, because there was a lot of no-shows. I have a lot of bookings, but I'm in the red. I look around on a Saturday night, not all my tables are filled. I'm not making the money I need to make. So he honed in on Bambi, and we'll just say, for whatever reason, he went and looked at what Bambi was doing and found that he could double their bookings and actual show rates, revenue, by adding 2 words to Bambi's spiel. Those 2 words were, "Will you?" So instead of saying, "Mr. Clayson, thanks so much, give us a call if you can't make it," Bambi now says, "Mr. Clayson, thanks so much, will you give us a call if you can't make it?" So what's my friend David here have to say? No. Yes, or he has to answer, right? Frankly, he could say no. No, I really probably can't be bothered. Right? That's what he's thinking. But what does he say? Yeah. He says yes. He gave a commitment. Now, does that guarantee that you're actually going to call if you can't make it? No. Does it increase it? Yeah. If you said yes, it does increase the probability that he's actually going to call Bambi if he can't make it. It's so simple, isn't it? But what we're talking about is mind share. she gained a little bit of his mind share. So when it comes down to 7 o'clock and they're running late and they decide to just go drink at the bar instead, he had a moment thinking of Bambi, and she got some of his mind share. So let me tell you another way to look at it. Relationships. Relationships, like sales, are a multi-step process. So if the touchdown in inside sales is the order, who can tell me what the touchdown might be in dating? Oh, I know what you're thinking. Go ahead, anybody. What might be a touchdown in the game of relationships or dating? Marriage, right. Guys, what's your version? Anyone? We all know what we're thinking. We maybe won't say it out loud. Now, let me ask you something. If you're on the first date, aka the first call, are you likely to propose marriage? If you are you likely to get a second date? No. But what might be some sort of first down, what might be a win or a close that you would go for on the first date? Asking for a second date. Great. My friend David dates a lot. What might be another close you could go for? A follow-up phone call. Maybe the kiss. Does that make sense? There are incremental steps along the way, and we're trying to apply that theory to inside sales. So if you think about what your end goal is of the sale, start thinking about what might be my first down. Maybe it's an explore call or an appointment. What might be my second down? What might be my third play, right? It's easiest sometimes to start back in your own end zone and say, what's my first step after call one? And then, by the way, switch and say, okay, just before the sale, what might come just before? And we can help build your playbook for what your wins are along the way. You guys with me so far? All right. One more analogy I'm going to use for mindshare. RSVPing to a party. How many of you have been invited to a party that you didn't show up for? There are a lot of really rude people, and no, I'm just teasing. We've all done that, right? We've all done it. All right. Are you more or less likely to show up to the party if you RSVP'd for it? Yeah, because you gave your commitment, right? You said, I'll show up. Now, are you more or less likely to show up for that party if you volunteered to bring the beer? You're more likely to come. People are counting on you for the brew, right? So now I made a commitment and I took an action item. I've tripled the chances that I'm actually going to show up to that party. And that's the sort of theory here that we're going to apply to closing for commitment. Any questions so far? So here's what we've talked about so far. When the customer owns a piece of the transaction, you create mind share. It's a simple little game, right? But there's a lot of people that sell what you sell out there, and a lot of people trying to sell a lot of things to that same decision maker. And the trick at the beginning is mind share. When the customer leaves the meeting with an action item, you've increased your mind share by at least 50%. That's equivalent to him bringing the beer. So close your decision makers by creating an action item that gets them involved and gets them committed. This making some logical sense to you guys here? All right, good. I've got you with me so far. So each time you get your customer to say yes or to take an action item, that is our equivalent of a first down. Because between call 1 and call 2, some amount of time has been spent thinking of you. Maybe not a lot. Definitely more than if you didn't get a commitment or an action item. Certainly more than your competitor who didn't get a commitment or an action item. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. So let's talk about the differences in when you get that commitment and when you don't. Have you got a question right now?
What was the percentage again?
About 50%. Yeah. It avoids the whole, oh, wait, maybe I didn't get your information. Who were you again? Why don't you resend it? And you're starting back from scratch again. And it's that frustrating returning back to your own end zone and starting over that we're trying to avoid. One of the neat statistics, by the way, that's out there is inside sales, a statistic from Inside Sales. Ken Krogh gave this at the last AISP conference, was that the average inside sales lead is called, I think, 1.5 times before it's abandoned. And yet best practice companies are calling 4, 5, and 6 times. That's where you see the real tipping point to it's turning from a lead into an opportunity. Well, why aren't our reps calling 4, 5, and 6 times? You know why? Because the second time they called back in, it felt exactly like the first time they called back in. So that's why this tactic can work. I've got one other little funny story I want to share with you about why this works. Can anybody tell me, like, when you think about this mind share and the whole, sure, I told Bambi I was going to call, but and even if I don't, I'm creating mind share. What are we actually talking about there? Guilt. Ladies and gentlemen, the Catholic Church has been using it for thousands of years. It's our turn. It's okay if they don't do the action item. It's okay if they say yes and they still don't. But guess what, on the next call, how about we say you use it for you instead of using it against them, right? All of a sudden it's a different conversation. It's not, yeah, who are you again? It's, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And all of a sudden this guy owes you one. Right? There's some mind share. Not only does it help between meetings, it helps during that second call. So let's look at this in action, okay? Is it closed? Did we get a commitment? The customer says this, yeah, sure, feel free to call back next week. Talk with my office manager, Joe. No, how come it's not? How can you tell it's not closed? Customer owns nothing, right? So that's one way. Oh, and there's no date. Ooh, you're good. Very good.
It's basically saying do what you want.
Do what you want, I don't care. It's the equivalent of send me information, right? Don't let your reps send information. Please don't do it. It's such a waste of time. They're not going to read it. You and I both know they're not going to read it. So this, when you're listening to calls, ask yourself, who owns the action item at the end of the call? Is it the customer? Or is it me? Or is it my rep? All right, here's another one. Okay, I'll see if I can find out when our current contract is and see when it cancels. Is this closed with commitment? No. Some say yes, some say no. Let me hear from my no's. Why isn't this closed? The customer says, yeah, I'll check it out.
Target date for next callback.
Ah, because you haven't scheduled your next callback.
Explanation of what the process is they're going to walk through.
Ah, very good. So you're saying it's weak. I don't have a date or an action item really assigned to it. How about those who say yes? Say again?
Yeah, there's nothing firm about that.
There's nothing firm about it. Very, very good. Now I'm going to tell you that I want to give our inside salespeople a little bit of credit here. I would count this as closed. And I would give credit as closed because the customer did take an action item. But what you guys have so keenly picked up on here is that it's not as strong as it could be. And you've already shown me what can make it stronger. Here's exactly what I'm going to do and by when, and I've scheduled my next appointment. So when you or your reps can send an Outlook meeting invite for call number 2, automatic first down. Automatic first down. Great job, you guys. Okay, here's another one. Give me a call next week. We'll take a look at our current service contract together. Tricky, tricky, tricky. Come on, somebody jump out there.
Sure, what time works best?
Oh, he's already getting it. Okay, sure, what time works best? He's getting it stronger. He's getting the actual commitment from the customer. And I agree. At this, really, he hung up the phone and didn't own anything. He didn't have to put anything in his calendar. He didn't have to do anything. He didn't, right? He just said, sure, I'll meet with you. So it's weak enough I probably wouldn't give this one credit as closed. Do you guys agree? All right, let's look at one more. Yep, go ahead and send me the quote, and I will take a look at it. We're in the same gray area again of the customer did agree to an action item. He said he'd look at the quote. If you call back to discuss the quote, will the customer feel guilty having not looked at it? Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit. So it's close, but we can make it stronger. And how do we do that? A follow-up date. Perfect. It's not rocket science, is it? But now we have to translate this into how do we ask for it? So read these two and tell me which one's better. Now we're hearing the rep's voice. All right, how many people vote for A? How many people vote for B? How many people are still reading? Yeah, B's the clear winner here. So, somebody help me see why. Yeah, exactly.
I said you're asking them to hold on to their contact information.
Yes, and I love it. There's more sales techniques from the back of the room. He's saying, and you're painting more of a picture of what's happening. But what you've asked his commitment to do is to hold on to your contact information.
And you cast a bigger net for everything. You're saying, any trouble meeting your needs as opposed to just for service issues.
Now, how many, I love it, great job, thank you. How many of you guys hear 1A a lot when you're listening to calls? It frustrates the heck out of me when I listen to outbound reps making these statements. Okay, well, give me a call if you ever, really? Really? They don't know who you, they've forgotten you already. Already, they haven't even hung up the phone. What's going to make them really remember you or save your contact information? So B, it's the same call. Nothing else magically happened except for a slight wording difference before we got off the call. If I send it to you, will you hold on to it and take this action with it? Does that guarantee that when he has an issue, he'll call? Nope. But he'll remember you more on call number 2. All right, now I'm going to give you one more. A or B? Yeah, why is A better? Comes down to a word, really. Will you has to say yes. And there's time in there, isn't there? In A, we say today. Will you do this for me today?
There's also an implication that I'll help you if you help me first. Get this to me in I can
Nice.
answer if you want.
Which made it a little easier for him to say yes to it, right? So these are small wording differences. But whenever you can get the customer to say the word yes, whenever you can assign a small action item, whenever you can help make him feel guilty when he didn't do what he said he was going to do, when you call back the second time, you've increased mind share. You've gained a first down so that your second call isn't starting all the way back with 100 yards to go. Questions about the differences and what we've seen in the examples? All right, so we're going to spend the next 15 minutes figuring out how do we build this into your sales process. All right, so let's start with planning for the win. Imagine, first, let's start with your touchdown. Okay, so what do you sell? VSS monitoring.
Network monitoring equipment.
Fantastic. And is your sale a contract? Is it a renewal? Is it, what's your touchdown?
No, it's they buy a piece of equipment.
Great. So it's an actual PO. I've sold you a piece of hardware. Fantastic. How about my friend in the back? What's a touchdown for you? Oh, sorry. You guys are both talking, and I can't see your name from here. Ladies first. What's a touchdown for you?
Taking a PO.
Taking the PO. Awesome. Does anybody have one that's different?